Chapter 9, Mauricia. Mauricia liked ice cream. She was sweet and pretty and could beat up any boy in Mrs. Jewell's class. Everybody liked Mauricia except Kathy, but then she didn't like anybody. Mauricia only liked ice cream. Every day Mauricia brought an ice cream cone to school and kept it in her desk until lunchtime. At first she brought chocolate ice cream every day, but soon she tired of chocolate and she started bringing vanilla. Then she got tired of vanilla too. Then she got tired of strawberry, fudge ripple, butter pecan, pistachio, and burgundy cherry, in that order. And then a terrible thing happened. Mauricia got tired of ice cream. By that time, her desk was a mess and everything in it was sticky. Everybody liked Mauricia, but Mauricia didn't like anything. Mrs. Jewels hated to see Mauricia unhappy. "I don't understand it, Mrs. Jewels," cried Mauricia. "There just aren't any good flavors anymore." So Mrs. Jewels worked all night. The next day she brought in a new flavor of ice cream for Mauricia. It was Mauricia-flavored ice cream. Everybody will like it, thought Mrs. Jewels, because everybody likes Mauricia. "Here you are, Mauricia," said Mrs. Jewels. "Mauricia-flavored ice cream." Everybody gathered around as Mauricia tasted it. They hoped she'd like it. Mauricia took a lick. "Well," said Mrs. Jewels. Mauricia took another lick. "Well," asked the class. "This ice cream has no taste," said Mauricia. "It doesn't taste bad, but it doesn't taste good. It doesn't taste like anything at all." Mrs. Jewels was heartbroken. "Here, let me try it," said Todd. He tasted it. "You're crazy, Mauricia," he said. "This is the best tasting ice cream I've ever eaten. Try some, Dee Dee." It's delicious," said Dee Dee. "It's so sweet and creamy." She passed it around the room. "Oh, it's so good," said Leslie. "I think it tastes terrible," said Kathy. "I don't understand it," said Mauricia. "I don't taste a thing." Mrs. Jewels slapped herself in the face. "Oh, I've made a big mistake, Mauricia. Of course you can't taste anything. It's Mauricia-flavored ice cream. It's the same taste you always taste when you're not tasting anything at all." So the next day, Mrs. Jewels brought in Joe-flavored ice cream. Mauricia liked it. So did everybody else. Joe thought it had no taste. Everybody liked Mauricia. Mauricia only liked Joe. The following day, Mrs. Jewels brought in Ron-flavored ice cream. Ron thought it had no taste, but everyone else loved it. Everybody liked Mauricia. Mauricia only liked Joe and Ron. By the end of the month, Mrs. Jewels had brought in 27 new flavors of ice cream, one for each member of the class. Everybody liked Mauricia, and Mauricia liked everybody. They all tasted so good, all except Kathy, that is. Kathy-flavored ice cream tasted a little bit like old bologna. Everyone still agreed that Mauricia-flavored ice cream was the best, except Mauricia. She liked Todd ice cream was the best. This turned out to be a problem. Every once in a while, Mauricia would try to take a bite out of Todd's arm in order to get that very special flavor. Chapter 10, Paul. Paul had the best seat in Mrs. Jewels' class. He sat in the back of the room. It was a seat that was the farthest away from Mrs. Jewels. Mrs. Jewels was teaching the class about fractions. She drew a picture of a pie on the blackboard. She cut the pie into 8 pieces and explained that each piece was 1/8 of the pie. Paul never paid attention. He didn't see the picture of the pie. He didn't see anything. Well, he did see one thing. Actually, he saw 2 things. He saw Leslie's 2 pigtails. Leslie sat in front of Paul. She had 2 long brown pigtails that reached all the way down to her waist. Paul saw those pigtails and a terrible urge came over him. He wanted to pull a pigtail. He wanted to wrap his fist around it, feel the hair between his fingers, and just yank. He thought it would also be fun to tie the pigtails together, or better yet, tie them to her chair. But most of all, he just wanted to pull one. Slowly, he reached for the one on the right. "No, what am I doing?" he thought. "I'll only get into trouble." Paul had it made. He sat at the back of the room. He paid no attention to anyone, and nobody paid any attention to him. But if he pulled a pigtail, it would be all over. Leslie would tell on him, and he'd be the center of attention. He sighed and slowly withdrew his arm. But Paul could not ignore those pigtails. There they were, dangling right in front of him, just begging to be pulled. He could close his eyes, but he couldn't make the pigtails disappear. He could still smell them and hear them. He could almost taste them. Maybe just a little tug, he thought. No, none. There they hung, easily within his reach. Well, let them just hang there, thought Paul. It would be foolish to pull one, no matter how tempting they were. None of the other children in the class pulled pigtails. Why should he? Of course, none of the other children sat behind Leslie either. It was just a simple matter of being able to think clearly. That was all. Paul thought it over and decided not to pull one. It was as simple as that. Suddenly his arm shot forward. He grabbed Leslie's right pigtail and yanked. "Yeah!" screamed Leslie. Everybody looked at her. "Paul pulled my pigtail," she said. They all looked at Paul. I couldn't help it," said Paul. "You'd better learn to help it," said Mrs. Jewels. She wrote Paul's name on the blackboard under the word discipline. "Tell Leslie you're sorry." "I'm sorry, Leslie," said Paul. Said Leslie. Paul felt horrible. Never again would he pull another pigtail. Except there was one problem. He still wasn't satisfied. He had pulled the right one, but that wasn't enough. He wanted to pull the left one, too. It was as if he heard a little voice coming from the pigtail saying, "Pull me, Paul, pull me." "I can't," Paul answered. "My name's already on the blackboard under the word discipline." "Big deal," said the pigtail. "Pull me." "No way," said Paul. "Never again." "Aw, come on, Paul, just a little tug," urged the pigtail. "What harm could it do?" "Lots of harm," said Paul. "Leslie will scream and I'll get in trouble again." "Boy, that's not fair," whined the pigtail. "You pulled the right one. Now it's my turn." "I know, but I can't," said Paul. "Sure you can," said the pigtail. "Just grab me and yank." "No," said Paul. "It's not right." "Sure it is, Paul," said the pigtail. "Pigtails are meant to be pulled. That's what we're here for." "Tell that to Leslie," said Paul. "Leslie won't mind," said the pigtail. "I promise." "I bet," said Paul, just like she didn't mind the last time. "You didn't pull hard enough," said the pigtail. "Leslie likes us pulled real hard." "Really?" asked Paul. "Cross my heart," said the pigtail. "The harder the better." "Okay," said Paul, "but if you're lying." "I promise," said the pigtail. Paul grabbed the left pigtail. It felt good in his hand. He pulled as hard as he could. "Yeah!" screamed Leslie. Mrs. Jules asked Paul, "Did you pull Leslie's pigtail again?" "No," said Paul. "I pulled the other one." All the children laughed. "Are you trying to be funny?" asked Mrs. Jules. "No," said Paul. "I was trying to be fair. I couldn't pull one and not the other." The children laughed again. "Pigtails are meant to be pulled," Paul concluded. Mrs. Jules put a check mark next to Paul's name on the blackboard under the word discipline. But at last, Paul was satisfied. True, his name was on the board with a check next to it, but that really didn't matter. All he had to do was stay out of trouble the rest of the day, and his name would be erased. It's easy to stay out of trouble when you have the best seat in the class. In fact, Paul could do this every day. He could pull Leslie's pigtails twice, and then stay out of trouble the rest of the day. There was nothing Leslie could do about it. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Leslie screamed, "Yeah!" Mrs. Jules circled Paul's name and sent him home early on the kindergarten bus. Nobody would believe that he hadn't pulled Leslie's pigtail again.
Where's Leslie?
Another girl in the class. Did you like that one?
Where's on the picture?
This is Dana. Let's read about Dana. Dana had 4 beautiful eyes. She wore glasses, but her eyes were so beautiful that the glasses only made her prettier. With 2 eyes, she was pretty. With 4 eyes, she was beautiful. With 6 eyes, she would have been even more beautiful. And if she had 100 eyes all over her face and arms and her feet, why, she would have been the most beautiful creature in the world. But poor Dana wasn't covered from head to foot with beautiful eyes. She was covered with mosquito bites. Mrs. Jules picked up her yardstick and said, "Now it's time for arithmetic." "Oh, no, Mrs. Jules," said Dana. "I can't do arithmetic. I itch all over. I can't concentrate." "But we have all kinds of arithmetic," said Mrs. Jules. "Addition without carrying, addition with carrying, and carrying without addition." "I don't care," cried Dana. "We have that too," said Mrs. Jules. "Addition without carrying. Now stop carrying on." Dana whined. "I can't, Mrs. Jules. I itch too much." "And I'm too thirsty," said DJ. "And I'm too hungry," said Ron. I'm too tired," said Tara.
Mom.
"I'm too stupid," said Todd. Mrs. Jules hit her desk with her yardstick and everyone stopped talking. Mrs. Jules said, "We're going to have arithmetic now, and I don't want to hear another thing about it."
Mom.
"But Mrs. Jules, I really do itch. I can't do arithmetic," Dana whined. "Nope," said Mrs. Jules. "Arithmetic is the best known cure for an itch. How many mosquito bites do you have?" "I don't know," said Dana. "Over 100. First I try scratching one, then another one starts to itch, so I scratch that one, and that one stops, and another one starts, so I scratch that one, and the itch moves down to another one, then it goes back to the first one. The itch just never stays in the same place. I just can't scratch them all." "What you need is a good strong dose of arithmetic," said Mrs. Jules. "I'd rather have calamine lotion," said Dana. "Remember, Dana," said Mrs. Jules, "mosquito bites itch, not numbers." "So what?" said Dana. Mrs. Jules continued, "We'll just have to turn your mosquito bites into numbers." "I'm a mess," Dana moaned. Mrs. Jules began to turn the mosquito bites into numbers. "How much is 3 mosquito bites plus 3 mosquito bites?" she asked. "Do you know?"
6.
Rondi raised her hand. 6 mosquito bites, she answered. "How much is 6 mosquito bites minus 2 mosquito bites?" asked Mrs. Jules.
7.
"We could try. 4 mosquito bites," said DJ. "How much is 5 mosquito bites times 2? asked Mrs. Jules. 10 mosquito bites, said Bibi. "Very good," said Mrs. Jules. "I still itch," Dana complained. "I've got one more question," said Mrs. Jules. "How much is 49 mosquito bites plus 75 mosquito bites?" Nobody raised a hand. "Think, class," said Mrs. Jules. "This is for Dana." Nobody knew the answer. Dana's itch began to get worse and worse. At last, Dana began counting her own mosquito bites. She counted 75 on one side and 49 on the other. She added them together for a total of 124 mosquito bites. 124 mosquito bites, Dana called. "Very good," said Mrs. Jules. Dana had 124 mosquito bites, and none of them itched anymore. I'm still thirsty, said DJ. Can arithmetic do anything for that? I'm still tired, said Ron. I'm still hungry, said Terrence. I'm still stupid, said Todd. I'm glad we turned my mosquito bites into numbers instead of letters, said Dana. I could never spell mosquito.
That's on my page.